penalty opponents are raising questions about the guilt of a convicted killer scheduled to die.
Of a woman and the death of her unborn baby who was cut out of her womb. Taylor Parker was
very attracted to her physically, but she was just, she treated me wonderfully, and
What we found when we looked at the records was that these people were in such financial...
I love you, Dana.
On its side. Therefore, the little dent. But.
And probably see, I'll be up in heaven while y'all are rotting in hell.
Killings seem to have become a brutal fact of life. Tragically, they happen so often.
And I cannot go in the execution chamber and be executed under the devil.
Case number 91-304. I sentence you to death for the murder of Charles Humphreys.
This story has been sold and resold many times by police officers.
Come out because of the circumstances.
20 years on death row in Texas, convicted of murdering a young mother. 4 days before, given birth to precious baby boy, ended up dead.
Mm-hmm. It, just thinking about it makes me sick.
In one sense, it's very difficult to understand. It's the American system.
Linda Carty, some people sing for making a living, but you sing for life.
Horrific event suddenly made the world a better place. And of course, the answer to that's obvious.
Saying is that I did not commit this crime, and for me, the worst.
Krista Gale Pike. Krista Gale Pike, born on March 10, 1976, is an American convicted slayer and the youngest woman to be sentenced to the end in the United States during the post-Furman period. At 20, she was convicted of the torture slay of her classmate, Colleen Slemmer, at the age 19. Pike, along with her junior Tedderell Shipp, planned to lure Slemmer into an abandoned steam plant near the University of Tennessee campus. After being attacked, taunted, beaten, and slashed, Pike smashed Slemmer's skull with a large chunk of asphalt, slaying her. Pike confessed to the torture and slaying of Slemmer, but insisted they were merely trying to scare her. During her trial, the prosecution was aided by evidence and Pike's confession. Pike was found guilty on both counts and sentenced to end by electrocution for the slay charge and 25 years in prison for the conspiracy charge. Shipp received a life sentence with the possibility of parole plus 25 years. Peterson, who had turned informant, received probation for pleading guilty to being an accessory after the fact. After the guilty verdict, Pike launched, canceled, and relaunched an appeal of her conviction in the Tennessee state courts. In June 2001, she asked the courts to drop her appeal and sought to be ended via electrocution. However, a 3-judge state appeals court panel ruled that the proceeding should be continued and the ending was not carried out. In December 2008, Pike's latest request for a new trial was turned down and she was returned to the ending row. In 2014, Pike's lawyers appealed her sentence from end to prison on grounds of ineffective assistance of counsel, mental illness, and unconstitutional capital punishment.
Acceptable, and I realize that, but I don't deserve to die for the action. To not have somebody chain me up when I walk out a door or tell me when I can use the bathroom. Or
through absolute hell. And I can't imagine anybody going through that. And I can't imagine.
I thought that if I went in there and told him that I did every single thing that happened up there.
A 61-page ruling by U.S. District Judge Harry Mattis Jr. denied relief, and the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit panel unanimously upheld the lower court ruling. Pike was convicted of attempted first-degree slay in 2001 with alleged assistance from inmate Natasha Cornett. However, investigators concluded there was insufficient evidence to charge Cornett with helping Pike attack Jones. In 2012, Pike made escape plans involving corrections officer Justin Heflin and New Jersey man Donald Kohat. A personal trainer visited Pike in person and enlisted the help of Helfin in return for cash and gifts. the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the New Jersey State Police thwarted the attempt, leading to Kohat being arrested and charged with bribery and conspiracy to commit escape. Kohat was sentenced to 7 years in prison, while Heflin was terminated from his job with the Tennessee Department of Corrections. On August 27, 2020, Tennessee Attorney General Herbert Slattery's office requested the Tennessee Supreme Court to set an ending date for Pike. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other factors, Pike's attorneys were granted extension by the court, allowing them more time to argue with Pike should not be executed. On June 7, 2021, Pike's attorneys filed a motion to oppose the ending date and request a certificate of commutation. The court is expected to decide whether Pike can be ended or if her sentence will be commuted. Her last meal before ending was nothing. She refused to eat anything.
The only woman on Tennessee's death row is asking for commutation of her sentence. We here at WA
living with taxpayers' money, paying for her to live in jail to get an education.
It is therefore ordered that Daryl Shipp and Shadala Peterson were charged in the 1995 death.
Take full responsibility for this anymore, and I won't, because if I'm going to die in here, I'm going to die for my truth.
Infuriated Krista, and Krista and Daryl knocked her down and drug her.
Number 9. Joseph Mitchell Yogi Parsons. Joseph Mitchell Yogi Parsons was an American who was ended for the August 1987 slay of Richard Lynn Ernest. Parsons hitched a ride with Ernest in California and knifed him to end at a remote rest area in Utah. After assuming Ernest's identity, Parsons continued to insist that he was Ernest when he was later arrested. He pleaded guilty to the slay but was unable to present any evidence to support his claim in his defense. The jury sentenced him to end. In 1999, Parsons chose to die by lethal injection and shunned attention, describing himself as Utah's forgotten inmate. Parsons was born on July 22, 1964, to Joseph Michael and Marie Parsons in New York City. His parents worked odd jobs from sewing fuzzy dice to construction. After his father was incarcerated, his half-sister Dina reported that his father beat him frequently until he wet himself. After leaving the family, Marie took them to Florida, where they met and married Lawrence Gordon, a drug dealer nicknamed Yogi. Parsons later adopted the nickname and had Yogi tattooed onto his right arm. Parsons received no visitors during his 5 years at Nevada State Prison. On October 16 to 17, 1982, Parsons met David Wood in Las Vegas and they took a cab to the Strip in search of marijuana. After stealing the driver's taxi, the two were caught in an alley and placed under citizen's arrest by Charles Conant and his brother-in-law, Ronald Mask. Wood was convicted and spent 13 years in prison. In August 1987, Parsons was paroled to a halfway house in Reno and fled on a stolen motorcycle. Ernest was laid near Cedar City, Colorado, and Parsons was arrested near Salina in Utah. In 1987, Joseph Mitchell Parsons was convicted of first-degree slaying in Utah State Prison. He was afflicted with crab lice while awaiting trial and was sentenced to an end. Parsons claimed he was defending himself with a 4-inch knife when Ernest grabbed his leg and thought his wounds were superficial. However, forensic psychiatrist David Toomb from the University of Utah stated that Ernest was not gay or bi. Parsons' physical history indicated that he may have been the one initiating the contact and became angry when Ernest turned him down. A medical examiner testified that Ernest appeared to have been knifed while sleeping and was unable to defend himself. On February 18, 1988, a jury sentenced Parsons to end and sent him to Utah State Prison. The Utah Supreme Court unanimously upheld Parsons' conviction, but Parsons filed an appeal, disputing the constitutionality of his first-degree slay conviction with the court. The court upheld the conviction and rejected his appeal on the grounds that Parsons should have raised that objection before he waived his right to a trial with his guilty plea. On July 6, 1999, Parsons abandoned the federal appeal of his sentence to the U.S. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, stating that he preferred ending rather than waiting for years on ending Roe. He was ended on October 15, 1999, in a new chamber built in 1998 at Utah State Prison for use in either lethal injections or firing squads. On the evening before his execution, Parsons watched The Mummy and was visited in his ending watch cell by his brother and cousin. They shared his last meal of Burger King hamburgers, French fries, milkshakes, root beer, and chocolate chip ice cream. Number 8. Leonard Raheem Taylor. Raheem Taylor, a Missouri man convicted of slaying his live-in girlfriend and her 3 young children, was ended. Taylor, who previously went by the first name Leonard, maintained that he was in California when the slayings occurred. His supporters included the National NAACP, nearly 3 dozen civil rights and religious groups, and the Midwest Innocence Project. However, Taylor's innocence claims were turned aside time and again. St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Wesley Bell declined Taylor's request for a hearing before a judge, stating the facts are not there to support a credible case of innocence. Republican Governor Mike Parson declined to grant clemency. The same day, the Missouri Supreme Court denied a stay request. Earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to intervene. Taylor and Angela Rowe live with the children at a home in St. Louis suburb of Jennings. Taylor boarded a flight to California on 26 of November 2004. On December 3, 2004, police were sent to the home in Jennings after worried relatives said they hadn't heard from Rowe. Officers found the bodies of Rowe and her children. All 4 had been slain.
So it's still not going to change nothing. Not really.
Leave behind a lengthy last statement. It concludes with, "Death is not your enemy, it is your destiny."
Penalty opponents are raising questions about the guilt of a convicted killer scheduled to die.
And every time he'd ride his motorbike, all 3 of the children would run up to the top of the hill and clap their hands.
Questionable things that happened in this case that definitely need to be looked into.
The initial finding by a medical examiner was that the slayings likely happened within a few days of the discovery of the bodies when Taylor was in California. But at Taylor's trial, medical examiner Philip Birch said the slayings could have happened 2 or 3 weeks before the discovery of the bodies. Bob McCullough, St. Louis County's elected prosecutor at the time of the slaying, said Taylor's claim of innocence was nonsense, and the alibis provided by his daughter and her relatives were completely made up. Evidence suggested Rowe and the kids were ended on the night of November 2022 or 23, at a time when Taylor was still in St. Louis. DNA from Rowe's blood was found on Taylor's glasses when he was arrested, and a relative taking him to the airport saw Taylor toss a gun into the sewer. Authorities believe Taylor slayed Rowe during a violent argument, then slayed the children because they were witnesses. Before his ending, he was served a last meal, a seafood platter, cheeseburger, French fries, cheesecake, and vanilla ice cream, according to corrections officials. He composed a final statement, which read in part, "Demise is not your enemy, it is your destiny."
You as well. Taylor has maintained his innocence in this case, but what are the last legal efforts?
Possibly be executed next month. And they find out.
I mean, our sister was brutally murdered, her and her children.
I couldn't mourn for them. I couldn't mourn.
Prison cell in Potosi. Again, he's set to be executed next month. Of course, we will let you know if that changes.
You know, do I see that? I don't even think about it.
St. Louis County Courthouse. Taylor was convicted of the quadruple murder here back in 2000.
Materials from Taylor's attorneys and is reviewing them now. Reporting from Clayton, Jeff Bernthal, Fox 2 News.
And about, oh, is they gonna kill me tomorrow or the next day or this or that? That's not what.
Number 7. Taylor Renee Parker. A Texas woman convicted of slaying a pregnant woman and ripping out her unborn baby was sentenced to demise. A jury of 6 men and 6 women in Bowie County, about 150 miles of Dallas, deliberated for less than 2 hours before handing down the fatal sentence for 29-year-old Taylor Renee Parker. Parker was convicted of capital slay on October 3 in the ghastly slayings of Reagan Michelle Simmons Hancock, 21 years old, and her infant daughter in New Boston in October 2020. My only biological sister, you need to understand what you took from me and my family. No more celebrating her birthday. I was barely 19 when I got the call my sister was gone, Emily Simmons, the victim's sister, said to Parker in an emotionally victim impact statement before jurors began deliberating, the Texarkana Gazette reported. She will never be my maid of honor. If I visit my sister, I have to go to a graveyard and see a headstone. I will never get a text or phone call from her again. Simmons Hancock's mother, Jessica Brooks, called Parker an evil piece of flesh demon. My baby was still fighting for her babies when you tore her open and ripped her baby from her stomach, the heartbroken mom said.
The hill, we don't have this over our heads. We know where she's going to be.
The courtroom was packed with members of Reagan's family, and many of them broke down in tears as the verdict was
a testament to the strength of the case that the Department of Public Safety put together.
Of a woman and the death of her unborn baby who was cut out of her womb, Taylor Parker was sent.
In the 10 months leading to the slaying, Parker had faked her own pregnancy in an elaborate scheme to prevent her boyfriend from leaving her, prosecutors said. She wore pregnancy disguises, fake ultrasounds, posted about her pregnancy online, and even threw a gender reveal party for the fake baby. Parker, who could not conceive after a hysterectomy, told her boyfriend she would be induced to deliver the baby on the day of the slay. Prosecutors said she intensively researched how to fake a pregnancy and watched numerous videos on delivering babies preterm at 35 weeks, which is how far along Simmons Hancock when she was slayed. On the morning of October 9, 2020, Parker crushed Simmons Hancock's skull with a hammer and knifed her more than 100 times in her home before removing her baby from her womb with a scalpel. Parker fled with the infant, a girl who later died. After her sentencing, Parker was slated to be moved to the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas, where the state houses its female ending row inmates. She is entitled to appeal her sentence. Her last meal request was eliminated.
Be responsible for the murder of a New Boston mother and her unborn baby.
Taylor Parker describes a heart-pounding encounter as testimony continues in the penalty phase of the trial.
Alex, today's testimony was really about Taylor Parker's relationship with her children for the killing of Reagan Hancock and kidnapping her unborn baby, Braxton Sage.
Number 6. Gerald Lee Mitchell. A Texas ending row inmate was ended for a slay he committed in 1985 at Houston when he was 17 years old. Gerald Lee Mitchell, 33 years old, was pronounced dead at 6:25 p.m. CDT shortly after receiving a lethal injection for the slay of 20-year-old Charles Marino during a robbery. In his final statement, Mitchell expressed remorse to Marino's family. "I am sorry for the pain," he said. "I am sorry for the life I took from you. I ask God for forgiveness and I ask you for the same. I know it may be hard, but I'm sorry for what I did." Marino's sister, 3 cousins and a friend were witness to the ending, as were 4 members of Mitchell's family. "To my family, I love each and every one of you," he said. "Be strong. Know my love is always with you always. I know I am going home to be with the Lord. Shed tears of happiness for me. I love each and every one of you. Keep on living." Although Mitchell was a juvenile when he slayed Marino, his case did not attract all the attention of Napoleon Beasley Summer in Texas and other juvenile slayers whose cases have gone to the Supreme Court. The High Court rejected Mitchell's final appeal. Mitchell's lawyer took a different approach than other attorneys who argued a juvenile doesn't have the maturity to understand the gravity of the crime. They argued that Texas should be bound by international treaties that ban the ending of juvenile offenders. Although Mitchell's ending went almost unnoticed by the news media, the head of the European Union was among several letter writers who urged Governor Rick Perry to commute Mitchell's sentence, citing international laws against executing juvenile offenders. In the Beasley case, questions were raised about the competency of his lawyer, and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals postponed his ending last August until it could hear arguments. Mitchell was also convicted of attempted capital slay in the Fleming slaying and giving 60 years in prison. He was also serving 60 years in the slaying demise of Hector Manguia, who was slain in the same day as Marino and Fleming in another robbery. Mitchell was the 14th convicted slayer ended in Texas. He was the 10th slayer ended in Texas for a slay committed when he was a juvenile. Gerald Lee Mitchell's final meal was assorted Jolly Ranchers. Number 5. Robert Frada. A former Houston police officer, Robert Frada was ended for hiring two people to end his estranged wife nearly 30 years ago. Frada received a lethal injection at a state penitentiary in Huntsville for the November 1994 fatal slaying of his wife, Farah. Prosecutors say Frada organized the slay-for-hire plot, which involved a middleman, Joseph Pristosh, and the slayer, Howard Guidry. Farah Frada, 33 years old, was slayed twice in the head in her home's garage in the Houston suburb of Atascocita. Frada had long claimed he was innocent. The U.S. Supreme Court declined an appeal from Frada's lawyers to stop the ending. They argued that prosecutors withheld evidence that a trial witness had been hypnotized by investigators, leading her to change her initial recollection that she saw two men at the slay scene, as well as a getaway driver. Prosecutors have argued that the hypnosis produced no new information and new identification. Frada was one of 4 Texas demise row inmates who sued to stop the state's prison system from using expired and unsafe ending drugs. There had been some doubt if Frada's ending would take place after civil court judge Catherine Mozzie in Austin issued a temporary injunction in the lawsuit that would have prevented the state prison system from using what she believed is likely expired and medically compromised pentobarbital, the drug Texas uses in its lethal injection. The ending was carried out after Texas Top Criminal Appeals Court overturned the injunction and the state's Supreme Court rejected an appeal. Mozzie's order conflicted with edict from the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals that barred her from issuing any orders in the lawsuit that would have halted any execution. The Supreme Court and lower courts previously rejected appeals from Frada's lawyers that sought to review claims arguing insufficient evidence and faulty jury instructions were used to convict him. His attorneys have also unsuccessfully argued that a juror in his case was not impartial and that ballistic evidence didn't tie him to the slay weapon.
Can you describe your wife Farah in the best moments you had?
Very attracted to her physically, but she was just, she treated me wonderfully, and she...
Frada's execution.
And tonight, Robert takes us through the case that led to the death penalty.
Bad guys put bullets in my mommy's head.
Self-serving, so egotistical, is a classic narcissistic.
My poor daughter, she stood in front of him. He could have spared her. These people are...
Andy Kahn says he will attend Bob Frada's execution, honoring a promise he made to witness the execution.
The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles unanimously declined to commute Frada's ending sentence to a lesser penalty or grant a 60-day reprieve. Frada was first sentenced to end in 1996, but his conviction was overturned by a federal judge who ruled that confessions from his co-conspirators should have been admitted into evidence. He was retarred and resentenced to end in 2009. Andy Cahan, the director of Victim Services and Advocacy for Crime Stoppers of Houston, said that Farah Frada's father, Lex Becker, who died in 2018, raised Robert and Farah Frauda's 3 children with his wife. He hoped that the ending would help them move on with their lives and not have to think about him anymore. Frauda was the first inmate to put an end this year in Texas and the second in the US. 8 other executions are scheduled in Texas for later this year. His last meal request was rejected.
I felt that as she was coming over to my apartment and she'd want to cook for me, clean for me, do my clothes for me, I grew to love her and fall in love with her for the personality that she was.
Number 4. Darlie Lynn Peck Routier. Darlie Lynn Peck Routier, an American woman from Rowlett, Texas, was convicted and sentenced to end for the slaying of her 5-year-old son Damon in 1996 and her 6-year-old son Devon. The crime was committed by an unidentified intruder, with the prosecution arguing that Routier's injuries were self-inflicted and the crime scene had been staged. The defense argued that there was no reason Routier would have slayed her children and that the case did not have a motive, a confession, or any witnesses. In February 1997, the jury found Routier guilty of Damon's slaying and sentenced her to end by lethal injection. 2 appeals filed by Routier, who maintains her innocence, were denied. DNA tests have been ordered multiple times since 2018, and as of 2022, the results of these tests are still pending. The case has been the subject of multiple books and television shows, with Routier's ex-husband believing she is innocent. On June 6, 1996, 911 dispatcher received a call from Routier's residence, stating that her home had been broken into and an intruder had knifed her children, Damon and Devon. Routier was treated at a hospital and released 2 days later. Her youngest son, Drake, was asleep upstairs with her husband, Darren, at the time of the slays.
Intruder in the house up until we actually searched the house and didn't find one. I thought he was
gone to sleep. The boys were sleeping downstairs with me, and
what we found when we looked at the records was that these people were in such financial.
In the arm, I was stabbed.
Do we still see a scar?
Yeah.
Can you lift it higher?
Yeah.
Anything?
I would not watch her execution. I would not watch them murder.
Puts the knife back in and then picks up another knife out of her kitchen and commits these horrible crimes.
Through this. And just being able to grieve, to have...
That if you and I had looked from the outside, we said these people are doing great.
In 1997, Darren Routier was convicted of slaying her sons due to financial difficulties and her materialistic nature. The prosecution suggested that Routier slayed her sons to preserve her lavish lifestyle, but the defense argued that the motive was financial, as both boys had life insurance policies. Routier was represented by lawyer Douglas Mulder, who argued that the case did not have a motive, confession, or witnesses. The defense also questioned why Routier left her youngest son, Drake, alive and unharmed. San Antonio Chief Medical Examiner Vincent DiMaui testified that the wound to Routier's neck came within 2 millimeters of her carotid artery, which contradicted her treating physician's assertions. The bloody sock found outside the house was crucial in the defense case, as it proved Routier could not have committed the crime. In 2011, Darren Routier filed for divorce from her husband, Darren, who believes his wife is innocent. The couple's youngest son, Drake, continues to visit Routier in jail, diagnosed with acute lymphomatic leukemia. Her last meal request was rejected.
There's one strange, mysterious item, a sock, bloody, found about that.
Well, we know that the sock contained the blood of the 2 boys. We know that from analysis.
You walk out of this here. What will you do first?
Well, I always had this picture.
To a storm drain, and it was laying out exposed as though whoever left it there.
Under the scene, they were then investigating evidence, quote, evidence to prove that she was guilty.
Number 3. Carla Faye Tucker. Carla Faye Tucker was an American woman who was ended in 1984 for slaying 2 people with a pickaxe during a burglary. She was the first woman to be ended in the United States since Velma Barfield in 1984 and the first in Texas since Chipita Rodriguez in 1863. Tucker was convicted of slaying in Texas in 1984 and ended by lethal injection after 14 years on Ending Row. She inspired an unusually large national and international movement advocating the commutation of her sentence to life without parole due to her gender and widely publicized conversion to Christianity. Tucker was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and her parents were troubled. She began smoking cigarettes with her sisters when she was 8 years old. At age 10, she learned that her birth was the result of an extramarital affair. By age 12, she had begun taking drugs and having adult trade. She dropped out of school at 14, followed her mother Carolyn into prostitution, and traveled with the Allman Brothers Band, the Marshall Tucker Band, and the Eagles. At 16, she briefly married Stephen Griffith and later met Sean Dean and Jerry Lynn Dean, who introduced her to Daniel Ryan Garrett, Danny Garrett. In 1983, Tucker and Garrett entered Jerry Dean's apartment in Houston, Texas, intending to steal a motorcycle.
I don't think so, and hopefully that will change.
Should there be?
There should be. Probably wishing there was a way I could give every...
Austin defense attorney, whose small office is just a few blocks from the state capitol.
I love you, Dana. Way, but I have to surrender that to the Lord.
As the deadly chemicals were being administered, she praised Jesus Christ, licked her lips, looked at the ceiling, and hummed. She was pronounced dead at 6:45 p.m. CST, 8 minutes after receiving the injection. For her last meal, Tucker requested a banana, a peach, and a garden salad with ranch dressing. She selected 4 people to watch her die, who included her sister Carrie Weeks, her husband Dana Brown, and her close friend Jackie Onken and Ronald Carlson. Tucker was the first woman ended in the state of Texas in 135 years, when Chipita Rodriguez was ended by hanging in 1963 during the American Civil War, and the second woman ended in the United States since the reinstatement of capital punishment in 1976. Number 2. Philip Ray Workman. Philip Ray Workman, an Ending Row inmate, was ended in Tennessee on May 9, 2007. Born on June 1, 1953, Workman grew up in Kentucky and later joined the Army. He served 25 months in Georgia for burglary and drug possession. In 1981, at 28 years old, Workman was heavily addicted to cocaine and hitchhiked to Memphis, where he robbed a Wendy's restaurant with a semi-auto pistol. 3 Memphis police officers responded to the alarm, and Workman attempted to flee across a nearby parking lot before ending and slaying Lieutenant Ronald Oliver. Workman was charged with slay during the commission of a felony by the jury, which recommended a sentence of end. The jury found 5 statutory aggravating circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of end to 2 or more persons. The slay was committed for the purpose of avoiding, interfering with, or preventing a lawful arrest or prosecution. The slay was committed while in lawful custody or in a place of lawful confinement, and the slay was committed against any law enforcement officer, corrections official, corrections employee, or firefighter engaged in the performance of official duties. Hammond Davis' testimony at the 1982 trial was heavily relied upon, but subsequent appellate proceedings failed to establish the falsity of his original testimony.
Now, according to Officer Stoddard, Philip Workman was able to drag.
That bullet had no signs of blood on it, no signs of tissue.
And into the Holiday Auto Parts lot, which is a distance of at least 60 feet based upon the...
on its side. Therefore, the little dent. But...
to the crime scene exhibit, we noted earlier that Don, could you get the crime scene?
Is perjured testimony allowed in this country for any sentence, let alone a sentence of death? Why was he strategic?
The U.S. Court of Appeals concluded that the evidence did not show that Davis lied at the trial, and the testimony did not amount to a recantation and did not show that Davis had lied during the trial. Ballistic experts have questioned whether the bullet that slayed Lieutenant Ronald D. Oliver could have come from Workman's gun. In 2000, two justices on the Tennessee Supreme Court expressed concern but were powerless to consider new evidence that might overturn the original verdict. The subsequent appellate proceeding was presided over by Judge Colton, who had also presided over the 1982 trial in which Workman was originally convicted and sentenced to end. Workman had no last meal request for himself, but instead, he asked for a large vegetarian pizza to be given to a homeless person. Prison officials denied his request, and Workman refused to eat anything. On May 9, 2007, homeless shelters across Tennessee received pizzas from people all over the country, honoring his last meal request. The Supreme Court refused to hear any appeals, and Workman died at 1:38 a.m. after a 17-minute procedure. The Tennessee State Supreme Court refused to hear his final appeal, which requested more time for defense attorneys to review the injection procedures. Workman's brother Terry testified that he was a Seventh-day Adventist at the time of his ending and strongly believed in non-desecration of the body after demise.
Where the money bag was and the jacket?
Did he get the information to collaborate almost 100
next to the shell casings? And the other evidence, the incident that occurred
in the pictures, the man wasn't there. And I know everybody's got to know this.
Hamburger shop in that parking lot. Now, if Officer Stoddard's correct about that,
they then blocked us so diligently at every turn.
Number 1. Coy Wayne Westbrook. Coy Westbrook, 58 years old, is on Ending Row in Texas for 17 years for a 1997 Channel View slaying rampage that left 5 dead. He considers himself a cut above the average slayer as he never had a criminal record. Westbrook, known as Elvis Wayne, is a big man who weighed almost 300 pounds on his arrival on the row. He pleaded for his life to be saved from being tarnished in a news report. Westbrook's version of the offense is at odds with the facts, according to Lynn Hardaway, chief of the Harris County District Attorney's Post-Conviction Writs Division. He committed a cold, calculated capital slay. Westbrook and his wife Gloria Jean Coons were married on July 5, 1995. But soon after their marriage, they embarked on an often rocky road that soon saw the couple separate. Westbrook said he was bewitched and not being guided by his head. On November 12, Westbrook drove his truck to a small Channel View apartment complex where Coons was partying with her friends. By the time sheriff's deputies arrived at 2 a.m. the next day, Coons, Diana Ruth Money, Antonio Cruz, Anthony Ray Rogers, and Kelly Haslip were dead. All had been slayed at close range with wounds to the head, chest, or abdomen. A Texas man named Westbrook was sentenced to life in prison for the slay of his wife, Coons, and her husband, Haslip. Vernay, a lawyer representing Westbrook, argued that Coons flashed her breasts at those gathered in his apartment and that he was threatened by the crowd.
Was executed, he said he was sorry for the pain that he had caused.
It ain't been too good. I mean, well, I don't actually wake up in the day. I stay at lunch, I go back to bed, and then well, as far as my religious beliefs or whatever like that, no.
Westbrook responded by retrieving his hunting rifle and accidentally discharged the firearm, slaying the woman. He then slayed Rogers and Cruz in self-defense, fearing for his life. Westbrook remained at the scene where he told deputies he had come to get his ex-wife. Vernay described Westbrook's behavior as consistent with an individual losing complete control in the face of a humiliating situation. The Texas Court of Appeals rejected Westbrook's argument that he slayed his victims in the heat of passion. The mass slaying shocked a city many thought to be inured to violence, but Westbrook's case took a stranger turn when a county jail inmate told authorities the slayer wanted to hire a hitman to end his first ex-wife and her common-law husband. Westbrook later rescinded the hit orders, fearing his conversation was being recorded by jail personnel. In his prison interview, Westbrook expressed remorse and expressed his pre-ending regimen, but admitted doubts about the presence of Jesus. His last meal included baked chicken, mashed potatoes, county gravy, green beans, sliced bread, mandarin orange cake, choice of water, tea, or punch to drink. He refused that meal, wishing Texas could offer the last meal request again.
Troubled childhood. Eileen Wuornos, the infamous female serial slayer, was born on February 29, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. Her early life was marred by a tumultuous upbringing that laid the foundation for darkness that would consume her in her later years. At just 6 months old, she experienced the most heart-wrenching abandonment of her teenage mother, leaving her in the care of her alcoholic grandmother and a cruel grandfather. Tragically, her grandfather subjected her to regular beatings, often using his belt buckle as a weapon. These brutal and violent acts inflicted upon her at such a tender age left indelible scars on her psyche. As if her early years were not filled with enough tragedy, Wuornos suffered another devastating blow when she was only 2 years old. Her father, who was already serving time in jail for the kidnapping and physical attack of a child, took his own life. This event not only robbed her of a parent, but also shattered any remaining fragments of stability and security in her life. The loss of her father under such circumstances undoubtedly left her with deep emotional wounds and a profound sense of abandonment. By the time Wuornos reached the age of 13, she had already endured unimaginable trauma. She had experienced physical attacks after physical attack, further exasperating the emotional turmoil she carried within her. At this young age, she also found herself pregnant, a consequence of the exploitation and vulnerability she had endured.
For forging checks, for car theft, for robbery, and for other charges.
Boy, I don't know about you. I'm telling you, man. No, I wasn't born bad.
She was a national figure, and there was national media that would converge on like the first day of her appearance in court.
I didn't kill him every day, did I? Did I go out there every day and say, I'm gonna kill him?
Many people involved in the case looked for a way to cash in. They would hire agents and they would try and negotiate book deals, movie deals.
It's making me get bitter, evil, angry. I've never been before in my life.
Faced with the unbearable circumstances of her life, she made the difficult decision to quit school. However, her already precarious situation took a turn for the worse when her abusive grandfather kicked her out of their home, leaving her to navigate the world alone and unguided at such a vulnerable age. In her desperate search for survival and stability, Wuornos turned to a life of bodywork. At just 15 years old, she embarked on a perilous journey, hitchhiking and engaging in bodywork along Florida's interstate highways. It was a dangerous and unpredictable existence where she had to navigate the perils and hazards of her trade to make ends meet. This harrowing period of her life exposed her to further violence, exploitation, and degradation as she struggled to find safety and security in an unforgiving world. Wuornos' survival skills were honed during these tumultuous years. She learned to be resourceful, cunning, and wary of the dangers that lurked around every corner. Her experiences on the highways of Florida exposed her to a range of individuals, some of whom were violent and predatory. To protect herself, she developed a hardened exterior and a willingness to use force if necessary. These survival mechanisms, born out of desperation, would later contribute to the dark path she would ultimately follow.
She may have been abused as a child, but it did not justify what she did to these men.
Okay, I cannot go in the execution chamber and die in the execution chamber as a liar.
Asked forgiveness. I am sorry that my acts of self-defense ended up in court like this. And
Probably see, I'll be up in heaven while y'all are rotting in hell.
Those men were shot just shot in self-defense, boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz.
The combination of a traumatic childhood, early exposure to violence and attack, and a life filled with struggle and danger undoubtedly had a profound impact on Wuornos. The scars left by her past experiences ran deep, shaping her outlook on the world and her interactions with others. While these factors do not excuse her later crimes, they provide context for understanding the complex and tragic journey that Aileen Wuornos undertook. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating effects that a tumultuous upbringing and unchecked trauma can have on an individual's life. The Reign of Terror. As Wuornos reached the age of 33, the cumulative years of physical attacks, degradation, and trauma took their toll, and she descended into a horrific spree of slayings that would forever brand her as a serial slayer. The precise motivations behind her slayings continue to be a subject of debate and speculation. Wuornos claims self-defense as her justification, asserting that she shot her victims because they posed a direct threat to her safety and well-being. However, the state of Florida argued a different narrative, contending that Wuornos lured her victims by posing as a vulnerable damsel in distress, deceiving them before carrying out her acts. Regardless of the circumstances and motivations, Wuornos mercilessly took the lives of 7 men between 1989 and 1990. Her modus operandi involved a chilling method of luring middle-aged men into her vehicle, only to abruptly end their lives with a single fatal gunshot. It was a calculated and cold-blooded approach that left her victims with no chance of escape or self-defense. Contrary to popular misconceptions, it is important to note that her victims were not subjected to dismemberment or mutilation. Instead, Wuornos left their lifeless bodies where they fell, creating a haunting tableau that served as a grim testament to the depths of her rage and violence. The aftermath of each slaying brought a harrowing mix of emotions for Wuornos. There was likely a sense of relief, as she believed she was eliminating potential threats and reclaiming power over her own life. However, the weight of her actions and the realization of the irreparable harm she had caused must have weighed heavily on her conscience. The cycle of violence she had been subjected to throughout her life had spiraled into a pattern that she herself perpetuated, forever altering the lives of her victims and their loved ones.
Apparently, there'd never been a female serial killer.
And I cannot go in the execution chamber and be executed under the devil.
I'm sorry for all the pain that my actions have caused. I am prepared to die if you say it is necessary.
Killings seem to have become a brutal fact of life. Tragically, they happen so often.
They definitely wanted Mallory dead.
And he said I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
Wuornos' spree of slayings eventually came to an end when she was arrested in 1991. She was subsequently convicted and given capital punishment for her crimes. Throughout the legal proceedings, her troubled past and the trauma she endured were brought to light, providing glimpses into the factors that shaped her dark path. The complex web of psychological, emotional, and societal influences that contributed to Wuornos' descent into violence cannot be overlooked, although they do not absolve her of the responsibility of her actions. Aileen Wuornos remains a controversial figure, sparking discussions about the nature of her crimes, capital punishment, and the systemic failures that allowed her life to unravel to such an extreme degree. Her story serves as a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of a life marred by attack, neglect, and trauma. It is a chilling testament to the fact that the human psyche can be shaped and driven to extreme acts under the weight of unbearable circumstances. The legal battles. Following her arrest, Aileen Wuornos found herself thrust into the eye of a media storm, becoming the subject of intense scrutiny and fascination. Lawyers, psychologists, and individuals seeking personal gain all converged on her case, contributing to a macabre spectacle surrounding her impending date with the electric chair. Amidst this chaotic environment, Wuornos' legal defense team, including her lawyers and her adoptive mother, navigated a precarious dance, preparing to defend her against the charges of slaying. Throughout her trial, Wuornos exhibited a complex and often contradictory demeanor. She vacillated between confessing to the slayings and pleading self-defense, leaving her defense team in a challenging position.
And somebody called her a female serial killer, America's first one.
I killed those 7 men in first-degree murder and robbery.
Case number 91-304. I sentence you to death for the murder of Charles Humphreys.
Horrendous crime. Why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, do all kinds of gross stuff?
This story has been sold and resold many times by police officers.
I'm being really straight up about everything. There's no self-defense.
The shifting nature of her statements created a sense of uncertainty and made it difficult to construct a consistent defense strategy. Wuornos' confessions offered a glimpse into her troubled psyche, where a mix of guilt, self-preservation, and a desperate desire for understanding seemed to intertwine. Her confessions, while chilling in their content, also hinted at the psychological torment she experienced as a result of her traumatic past. In the midst of the legal proceedings, another key figure emerged: Tyria Moore, Wuornos' former lover. Initially, Moore stood by Wuornos, supporting her claims of self-defense. However, as the trial progressed, Moore became the star witness for the prosecution, delivering damning testimony against Wuornos. This shift in loyalty complicated the case further, adding a dimension of betrayal and relational strife. The dynamics between Wuornos and Moore were entangled in a complex web of emotions, trust, and manipulation, making it difficult for the court and observers to decipher the truth amidst their conflicting narratives. The trial took an even more sinister turn when allegations of a conspiracy emerged. It was revealed that Moore and the police had attempted to sell the movie rights to Wuornos' life story, raising questions about the integrity of those involved in the investigation and legal proceedings.
And somebody called her a female serial killer, America's first one.
I killed those 7 men in first-degree murder and robbery.
Case number 91-304. I sentence you to death for the murder of Charles Humphreys.
Horrendous crime. Why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, do all kinds of gross stuff?
This story has been sold and resold many times by police officers.
I'm being really straight up about everything. There's no self-defense.
The revelation of this shocking conspiracy triggered public outrage and fueled skepticism regarding the fairness and objectivity of the trial. The focus shifted from a search for justice to the exploitation and commodification of Wuornos' story, leaving many to question the motivations and ethics of those involved. The media frenzy that surrounded Wuornos' case exasperated the complexity and sensationalism of the trial. Journalists and tabloids clamored for every detail, often painting Wuornos as a monstrous figure devoid of humanity. The intense public interest in her story only served to heighten the spectacle and further distort the truth. The narrative surrounding Wuornos became a mix of fact and fiction, creating a distorted image of a deeply troubled woman whose actions defied easy explanation. In attempting to understand the intricate web of motivations and circumstances surrounding Wuornos' case, it is essential to acknowledge the complexities and uncertainties that shrouded the trial. While her confessions hinted at a deeply disturbed psyche, they also bore the marks of a troubled individual grappling with her own past and the harsh realities of her present. The involvement of Moore and the subsequent conspiracy underscore the ethical challenges and moral ambiguities that can arise within the legal system. The case of Aileen Wuornos serves as a stark reminder of the ways in which individuals can be exploited, sensationalized, and manipulated in the pursuit of profit and media attention. Her story became a morbid fascination for many, overshadowing the underlying psychological and societal issues that contributed to her actions. It is crucial to remember that behind the sensational headlines and media circus was a deeply damaged individual whose traumatic past and troubled relationships played a significant role into her descent into violence. Aileen Wuornos' trial was marred by a media frenzy, the involvement of opportunistic individuals, and a complex interplay of shifting loyalties and questionable motives. The macabre dance between her defense team, the prosecution, and the media created a distorted narrative surrounding her case, making it challenging to discern the truth amidst the chaos. The involvement of Tyria Moore in the conspiracy to sell the movie rights to Wuornos' story further added to the complexity and ethical challenges surrounding the trial. The sensationalism and exploitation that engulfed Warnes' story overshadowed the underlying psychological factors and societal issues that contributed to her actions, reinforcing the need for a more nuanced understanding of the complex tapestry of darkness that surrounds her.
Case number 91-112, Citrus County case number. I sentence you to death for the murder of David Spears.
On to plead out, that's what I'm all about. Just sign.
Eileen Wuornos would never know her father. He was a handyman, but he was also a child molester.
Come out because of the circumstances of what I was doing. Hitchhiking, hooking.
Got into prostitution when she was around 13, and she would do it for cigarettes or beer.
Tyra was doing a lot of beer drinking and stuff. She wanted to go out all the time, so she was burning up the money I was making.
Psychological turmoil. Eileen Wuornos was a subject of great interest to psychologists who sought to unravel the intricate web of factors that contributed to her violent acts. Through their examinations, a haunting portrait of a deeply damaged individual emerged, revealing the lasting impact of a traumatic past marked by abandonment, attack, and physical attack. It became evident that Wuornos' troubled childhood experiences and the horror she endured played a pivotal role in pushing her over the edge, leading to her descent into violence. Furthermore, her life on the fringes of society as a body worker served to exacerbate her already fragile psychological state, further entangling her in a web of psychological turmoil. The story of Wuornos begins with a childhood marked by abandonment and attack. Born on February 29, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan, she was raised by her teenage mother and her grandparents. However, her mother abandoned her at a young age, leaving Wuornos to grow up in a tumultuous environment. Her grandfather was reportedly an alcoholic who was prone to violent outbursts, while her grandmother struggled with mental health issues. The lack of stability and nurturing parental figures undoubtedly left a profound impact on Wuornos' developing psyche, creating an emotional void that would haunt her for the rest of her life. As Wuornos entered adolescence, her life took a darker turn. She became a victim of physical attack, an experience that would leave an indelible imprint on her psyche. The trauma of such heinous acts can shatter a person's sense of self, leading to profound feelings of powerlessness, anger, and self-hatred. In Wuornos' case, these feelings may have laid the groundwork for her later acts of violence, serving as a distorted means of reclaiming control and seeking revenge against a world that had treated her so brutally. Struggling to cope with her traumatic past, Wuornos found herself spiraling down a path of self-destruction. She turned to a life of survival and exploitation, working as a body worker to make ends meet. This existence on the fringes of society only served to compound her psychological turmoil. Body workers often face extreme levels of stigmatization and marginalization, enduring further attack and exploitation at the hands of clients, pimps, and even law enforcement. The constant threat to her physical and emotional well-being undoubtedly exasperated Wuornos' already fragile mental state, deepening her feelings of rage, mistrust, and isolation.
You know, we believe in the Holy Spirit, and so we feel it was Him prompting us that this person really needed help.
And he really did throw the kids out because he couldn't take care of the house any longer. He lost his wife and all that.
Because I have to put them in first on this whole thing. I'm really sorry for
When she was 2, her father committed suicide in jail, where he was doing time for kidnapping and raping a child.
Of course, pick up a young woman because they think the woman is willing to have sex with them, and that's why they're on the highway.
Yeah, Richard Mallory was not self-defense. Richard Mallory I killed
And when her grandfather kicked her out of home, Lee Wuornos' life on the road began.
Just as quickly as Wuornos and Fell got married, it all began to fall apart.
The combination of Wuornos' troubled upbringing, a life marked by survival and exploitation, and the weight of her crimes created a complex tapestry of darkness that surrounded her. Psychologists attempted to understand the motivations behind her violent acts, seeking to unravel the enigma that was Eileen Wuornos. Yet, despite their efforts, a definitive explanation remained elusive. It is essential to recognize that human behavior is not determined by a single factor, but rather influenced by a multitude of complex interplays between biology, psychology, and social circumstances. In Warnos's case, her traumatic childhood experiences undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping her psychological makeup. The chronic attack, abandonment, and physical attacks she endured eroded her sense of self-worth and left her emotionally scarred. Her subsequent life as a body worker only reinforced her feelings of being trapped and exploited, perpetuating a cycle of trauma and despair.
I needed his wheels to move the stuff, and he had the right amount of money I needed to move into the apartment, so. I wasn't too high priced, so I could keep the customers satisfied.
You come in here at a decent hour.
I can do what the hell I want to!
That was pretty convincing.
Was it? That's sad.
Well, I thought so.
God, that's sad.
The killings all began like this. A middle-aged man pulled over to pick up Lee Wuornos.
Eileen pawned the diamond ring, and Louis Fell disappeared.
Nick, this is the last time I'm going to say it. You have to kill Eileen Wuornos because she'll kill again.
The state of Florida maintains she tricked her victims by posing as a damsel in distress.
Law enforcement cover-up. In her final interview, Eileen Wuornos made shocking claims that raised disturbing questions about the integrity of the criminal justice system. Wuornos asserted that law enforcement knew her identity as a slayer after the demise of Richard Mallory, but intentionally allowed her to continue her slaying spree, effectively turning her into a serial slayer. She firmly believed that her fingerprints were intentionally left at crime scenes, and the police concealed this information to ensure she would keep slaying. Wuornos adamantly denied being a professional serial slayer and stated that her actions were neither special nor meticulously planned. If Wuornos's claims are indeed true, they imply a severe dereliction of duty and a shocking betrayal of public trust by law enforcement officials. The idea that authorities knowingly allowed a slayer to remain at large solely to build a case against her is deeply unsettling. It raises troubling questions about the priorities and ethics of those responsible for investigating and preventing crime. The case of Eileen Wuornos has already garnered significant attention due to her status as a female serial slayer, a rarity in the annals of criminal history. Her troubled past and tragic upbringing have fascinated the public, who have attempted to understand the factors that contributed to her descent into violence. Wuornos's claims in her final interview add another layer of complexity to her case and invite further scrutiny into the actions of those involved in investigating her crimes. It is essential to approach Wuornos's assertions with a critical lens, recognizing that she was a convicted slayer with a history of mental health issues.
Being really straight up about everything. There's no self-defense. I'm really sorry what happened about everything.
All re-electional purposes. This is not for nothing but get you guys re-elected. And this is a bunch of bullshit.
Cruising all over the United States of America and stuff. And so learning how to be a hooker as a hitchhiker, to me, this world is nothing but evil, and all of us are full of evil one way or another.
However, her claims cannot be dismissed outright without a thorough investigation. The criminal justice system is built on principles of accountability, fairness, and the pursuit of truth. If any evidence exists to support Wuornos's allegations, it is imperative to uncover it to ensure that justice is served and the public's trust in law enforcement is maintained. The potential ramifications of Wuornos's claims go beyond her individual case. They raise broader questions about the integrity of the criminal justice system and the balance between the pursuit of justice and the protection of public safety. If law enforcement intentionally allowed Wuornos to continue slaying, it not only demonstrates a failure to prevent further loss of life, but also undermines the fundamental principles of law enforcement's duty to protect the public. In conclusion, Eileen Wuornos's claims in her final interview have brought to light deeply troubling questions about the integrity of the criminal justice system. The allegation that law enforcement allowed a known slayer to continue her slaying spree is deeply unsettling and demands further investigation and scrutiny. Torture and incarceration. During her final interview, Eileen Wuornos made alarming claims regarding the alleged torture and attack she endured while incarcerated. Wuornos described a disturbing ordeal involving the use of sonic pressure on her head since 1997, along with insinuations of an artificial intelligence presence in her cell. She suggested that her writing activities were being monitored and suppressed, as any attempts to write resulted in an intensification of the pressure she experienced. These allegations by Wuornos shed light on the potential for technological manipulation and surveillance within correctional facilities. If her claims were substantiated, it would have exposed a grave violation of human rights and highlighted systemic failures within the prison system. The use of sonic pressure and potential interference with an inmate's activities not only constituted physical and psychological torture, but also infringed upon their right to privacy and dignity. The concept of sonic pressure, also known as sonic or acoustic weapons, involves the use of sound waves to cause pain, discomfort, and psychological distress.
They had the intercom on in the room, and they kept lying that it wasn't on, and they were using sonic pressure on my head since 1997.
Lee had a long history of neglect and sexual abuse. Lee was born in 1956 in Troy, Michigan.
It was them or me. I am sorry for all the pain that my actions have caused.
While primarily used in crowd control or military operations, Wuornos' assertion that she experienced this type of pressure in her cell suggested an alarming misuse of such technology within the prison system. Sonic pressure can have severe and long-lasting effects on an individual's mental and physical well-being, making it a highly unethical practice if confirmed. Wuornos' implication that her writing was being monitored and suppressed added another dimension to her claims. If an artificial intelligence system had indeed been implemented to monitor her activities, it would have raised significant concerns regarding privacy and surveillance in correctional facilities. Inmates have the right to express themselves through various means, including writing, and any interference with this fundamental right would have been a clear violation. It was crucial to thoroughly investigate these allegations and hold accountable those responsible for any such violations. Furthermore, Wuornos mentioned the presence of a large satellite on the prison compound, which she suspected may have been connected to the television or mirror in her cell. She recalled an electrician's comment about the mirror resembling a computer. While these details may have appeared speculative, they underline the need for transparency and oversight in correctional institutions regarding the implementation of technology. If there was any truth to Wuornos' claims, it pointed to a system that was failing in its duty to provide a safe and humane environment for those in custody. Correctional facilities had the responsibility to uphold the rights of inmates, ensuring their physical and mental well-being while respecting their privacy and dignity. Any violations of these rights undermine the legitimacy and effectiveness of the criminal justice system as a whole. To address these alarming allegations, it was imperative to conduct a thorough investigation that involved independent experts and human rights organizations. The investigation should have examined the conditions of Wuornos' confinement, including any potential use of sonic pressure or other forms of torture, as well as the presence and misuse of any technological systems. Additionally, comprehensive reviews and reforms of prison protocols and oversight mechanisms should have been undertaken to prevent similar attacks from occurring in the future. Eileen Wuornos' allegations of torture and attack during her time in incarceration raised serious concerns about human rights violations within the prison system. The alleged use of sonic pressure, potential technological interference, and infringement upon her right to privacy and dignity underscore the urgent need for a thorough investigation and comprehensive reforms. The well-being and safety of individuals in custody should always be paramount, and addressing these issues was crucial to ensure the fair and ethical treatment of all inmates.
It was crushing my head, and they were using sonic pressure continually.
I'll appoint the Public Defender's Office to handle the appeal. There's one other thing that I want to say that I think needs to be said.
Pulled me through. They all said I was going to die. They beat my husband. He was out in Las Vegas at a convention.
I was raped. I hope you get raped.
That's not the way the jurors...
Wuornos' final plea. In her final interview, Eileen Wuornos expressed a mix of defiance, anger, and resignation. She firmly believed that her actions were a response to the threats and dangers she faced while working as a hitchhiking body worker. While she refrained from explicitly stating whether her slayings were in self-defense or premeditated, she insisted that she saved people from harm and played a role in cleaning the streets. Wuornos's intense frustration and bitterness were directed towards society, the justice system, and those who had profited from her story. She accused society of railroading her and sabotaging her life, preventing her from receiving a fair trial or investigation. She also expressed her deep disappointment with the exploitation of her story for financial gain, while her own humanity and the truth behind her actions were disregarded. In her final plea, Wuornos called for accountability and justice. She demanded that her story be heard without distortion or manipulation. Despite her troubled past and the heinous crimes she committed, Wuornos pleaded for her experiences and the truth to be acknowledged and taken seriously. Her final words served as a haunting reminder of the complexities of human nature, the failures of the justice system, and the responsibility of society to treat all individuals with fairness and humanity. Aileen Wuornos's final interview provided a glimpse into her perspective on the events that unfolded in her life. Her claims of law enforcement cover-up, torture, and incarceration, and reflections on her legacy raised important questions about the integrity of the criminal justice system, the treatment of prisoners, and the portrayal of individuals in the public eye. While Wuornos's crimes were undeniably horrific, her interview invited us to critically examine the societal factors that may have contributed to her actions and the systemic failures that allowed her crimes to continue. It was crucial to approach these claims with skepticism and conduct thorough investigations to ascertain the truth. If Wuornos's allegations were substantiated, it would have been vital to address the issues she raised, such as law enforcement misconduct, attack and incarceration, and the exploitation of individuals' stories. Ultimately, Wuornos's final plea reminded us of the need for fairness, justice, and compassion in our criminal justice system, even when confronting the most difficult and disturbing cases. In response to Wuornos's interview, it was essential for authorities and the public to carefully consider her claims and conduct a comprehensive investigation. While her perspective and credibility may have been subject to scrutiny due to her criminal history, it was crucial to ensure a fair and impartial examination of the allegations she made. This would have involved gathering evidence, interviewing relevant individuals, and thoroughly reviewing her case to determine the validity of her statements. Additionally, Wuornos's interview highlighted broader issues within the criminal justice system that needed to be addressed. The allegations of a law enforcement cover-up and a lack of a fair trial pointed to potential systemic failures that required thorough scrutiny and potential reforms. It was necessary to review the procedures and protocols followed during Wuornos's arrest, trial, and incarceration to identify any instances of misconduct or negligence. Furthermore, Wuornos's claims of torture and attack while in custody raised significant concerns about the treatment of prisoners and the conditions within correctional facilities. It was crucial to investigate these allegations thoroughly, ensuring the safety and well-being of inmates and holding accountable any individuals responsible for mistreatment or violation of human rights. Lastly, Wuornos's reflections on the exploitation of her story and the disregard for her humanity reminded society of the ethical responsibility to treat individuals with dignity, even in the face of their heinous crimes. It was imperative to recognize the complexities of human nature and the need for a fair and balanced approach to justice that considers the individual circumstances and underlying factors that may contribute to criminal behavior. In conclusion, Aileen Wuornos's final interview presented a complex and troubling perspective on her life and crimes. While her claims and assertions needed to be thoroughly investigated, her words prompted important discussions about the criminal justice system, prisoner treatment, and the portrayal of individuals in the public eye. By examining her case and addressing the issues she raised, society had the opportunity to learn from her experiences and work towards a more fair and compassionate approach to justice. Last meal. In a surprising and perhaps fitting choice, Aileen Wuornos's last meal request before her ending was a simple cup of coffee. This seemingly ordinary beverage held a significant meaning and symbolism in the context of her final moments. Coffee, with its rich aroma and invigorating properties, has long been associated with comfort, solace, and sense of normalcy. For Wuornos, who had lived a tumultuous and troubled life, this choice may have represented a desire for a momentary respite from her grim reality. It was a familiar and familiarizing act, a simple pleasure that connected her to the outside world and offered a brief escape from the weight of her impending fate. While the request for coffee as her last meal may appear unremarkable compared to more elaborate or indulgent choices made by others, it underscores the profound significance of finding solace in small comforts, even in the face of unimaginable circumstances. In that final cup of coffee, Warnos sought a fleeting moment of normalcy and human connection, finding a brief sense of solace before her journey came to an end. The final days and legacy. In the final days of her life, Eileen Warnos made a fateful decision that would seal her tragic fate. She chose to plead no contest to the remaining charges against her, effectively accepting the capital punishment. At this point, Warnos had grown weary of the intense media spotlight and the various narratives that had been woven around her. She rejected the simplistic labels of a man-hating or lesbian slayer that had been imposed upon her, understanding that they failed to capture the complex and deeply troubled individual that she was. In her own tortured way, Warnos sought a release from the torment she had endured, whether it be at the hands of her victims or the relentless public scrutiny she faced. On October 9, 2002, Eileen Warnos was executed by lethal injection, making her the first woman to be executed in Florida since 1848. Her demise marked the tragic end of a life defined by pain, violence, and psychological turmoil. However, even in demise, Warnos' story continues to captivate the public's imagination, sparking debates and raising important questions about the interplay between nature and nurture, the influence of traumatic experiences on one's actions, and the enigmatic depths of the human mind. The story of Eileen Warnos forces us to confront the complexities of human behavior. It challenges our understanding of the motivations behind violent acts and urges us to examine the factors that contribute to the creation of a serial slayer. While her traumatic past undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping her psychological landscape, it is important to recognize that not all individuals who experience similar hardships resort to violence. Warnos' life serves as a chilling reminder of the intricate interplay between nature and nurture, individual agency, and the societal factors that shape our behavior. Warnos' tragic journey raises important questions about the devastating consequences of childhood trauma. The abandonment, attack, and physical attack she experienced as a young girl left an indelible mark on her psyche. Such traumatic experiences can fracture a person's sense of self and breed a deep-seated anger, mistrust, and self-destructive tendencies. Warnos' desperate acts of violence may have been a twisted attempt to regain control over her life, seeking revenge against a world that had treated her with cruelty and indifference. It is a somber reminder of the urgent need for society to address the root causes of childhood trauma and to provide support systems for those who have suffered from such experiences. The ending of Eileen Warnos also sheds light on the flaws within the criminal justice system. Her case was tainted by sensationalism, media manipulation, and questionable ethical conduct. The intense media frenzy surrounding her story created an atmosphere of spectacle and distorted the pursuit of justice. The involvement of individuals seeking personal gain and the conspiracy to sell the movie rights to Warnos' life story cast doubt on the integrity of those involved in the investigation and legal proceedings.
What you want to see? Do you want the tapes? Do you want everything, the new stuff? All.
The cops knew who I was. After Richard Mallory died, I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up.
Instead, talking about dropping her public defenders and hiring private attorney Steve Glazer.
Father committed suicide in prison. He was serving a sentence for sodomizing a 7-year-old child.
That really hurt really bad because he tore me up for a while.
These revelations ignited public outrage and raised concerns about the fairness and objectivity of the trial. Warnos' story is a haunting reminder of the fragility of the line that separates victims from perpetrators in a society riddled with violence and pain. She was both a victim of a traumatic past and a perpetrator of heinous crimes. Her life serves as a stark example of how deeply intertwined victimhood and perpetration can be, highlighting the complex nature of human behavior and the difficult task of categorizing individuals neatly into one role or the other. The legacy of Eileen Warnos continues to fuel important discussions surrounding mental health, criminal justice, and the societal responsibility to support and rehabilitate individuals who have fallen through the cracks. Her story prompts us to examine the failures of our systems, to address the underlying issues that contribute to cycles of violence and trauma, and to seek a deeper understanding of the human condition. In conclusion, the tragic life and crimes of Eileen Wuornos present a chilling and complex narrative. Her decision to plead no contest to the remaining slaying charges, leading to her ending, marked the culmination of a life filled with pain, violence, and psychological turmoil. Her story captivates the public's imagination and provokes profound debates about the complexities of human behavior, the lasting impact of childhood trauma, and the flaws within the criminal justice system. Wuornos' life serves as a reminder of the urgent need to address the root causes of violence, to provide support for individuals who have experienced trauma, and to strive for a more compassionate and just society.
In the heart of Texas, Linda Carty's case echoes with questions of justice, consular rights, and the demise penalty. Join us as we unravel the twists and turns of this high-stakes legal saga. The crime: Linda Anita Carty, a woman from Texas, was sentenced to demise in February 2002 for a heinous crime committed in 2001. She orchestrated the abduction and slaying of 20-year-old Joanna Rodriguez with the intent of stealing Rodriguez's newborn son. Carty's motive was to pass off the child as her own. Her defense claimed that she was framed by her co-defendants, who were involved in drug dealing, allegedly due to her prior role as an informant. Carty's crime unfolded when she enlisted 3 accomplices to help her break into her 25-year-old pregnant neighbor's home. Their plan was to wait until the neighbor gave birth, then forcibly take the newborn, slaying the mother, and flee the scene. On May 16, 2001, they carried out this horrifying plan, invading the victim's home and kidnapping her along with her newborn son. Tragically, Joanna Rodriguez succumbed to suffocation during the ordeal, leaving behind her unharmed but motherless infant. This ruthless act of violence shocked the community and led to Carty's subsequent arrest, trial, and eventual demise sentence. Since her conviction, Linda Anita Carty has pursued legal avenues to challenge her sentence. She filed appeals in an attempt to overturn the verdict. However, despite her efforts, the United States Supreme Court denied her most recent petition for a writ of certiorari on November 13, 2018. Carty's case stands as a chilling reminder of the depths to which some individuals are willing to sink in the pursuit of their own desires, and the tragic consequences that result from such actions. It also highlights the complex and contentious nature of the criminal justice system, where issues of framing, informant status, and the ultimate penalty of demise are all deeply entangled.
20 years on death row in Texas, convicted of murdering a young mother.
A lot of religious songs.
Sing something then. What sort of thing?
They've helped so much already, and I'm just asking for more, because the only way to...
Who kept pushing me, he said, you need to put something out there, you never know.
In a moment, we'll meet one of the barristers fighting for her freedom. But first, here's a look at when Susanna...
Amazing grace, how sweet.
Matters. Linda's British. Were the British authorities, the consulate authorities, notified?
From what I was told, she spoke Spanish. She didn't even speak English.
Early life and education. Linda Anita Carty's life is marked by a complex web of experiences and choices that ultimately led her to Texas Demise Row. Born in St. Kitts to parents from Anguilla, she held British citizenship due to St. Kitts' status as a British colony at the time of her birth. In 1982, she immigrated to the United States and eventually became a naturalized American citizen. Carty's early adulthood was characterized by her career as a primary school teacher. Later, she pursued studies in pharmacology at the University of Houston. However, her life took a turn when she became entangled with law enforcement agencies. In 1992, she found herself in legal trouble, convicted of auto theft and impersonating an FBI. In exchange for her cooperation in aiding the FBI to apprehend drug dealers, she received a reduced sentence of 10 years probation. This role as an informant proved pivotal, leading to the arrest of 2 individuals involved in significant drug trafficking operations. Unfortunately for Carty, Her own involvement in drug-related activities eventually led to her own arrest, ending her tenure as an informant. Her personal life was equally tumultuous. She married Joseph Crown, but their relationship became strained, leading to his departure in May 2001. Desperate to win him back, she resorted to lies, including the claim that she was pregnant. This fabrication led to a cascade of further falsehoods, with Cardi attempting to maintain the illusion of her pregnancy. Despite her assertions, there were no physical indications of pregnancy, such as weight gain or visible changes in her appearance. On May 15, 2001, Cardi told her neighbor, Florence Mayers, that she was pregnant and expected to give birth the following day. Mayers, taken aback, testified that she had been entirely unaware of Cardi's purported pregnancy, as there were no discernible signs. The pressure mounted when Joseph Crown visited the local jail on May 16, 2001, where Cardi was incarcerated on drug charges. He inquired about the baby, to which Cardi responded with a vague, "Not yet." This interaction underscores the mounting tension within Cardi, who faced the challenge of somehow producing a child for her estranged husband. Just a day prior, on May 15th, Cardi encountered another acquaintance, Sherry Bancroft, who had been under the impression that Cardi was pregnant. Bancroft asked if Cardi had given birth, to which she claimed she had already delivered a baby boy, who was now at home with his father. This web of deceit ultimately culminated in the tragic events that unfolded on May 16, 2001, when Cardi and her accomplices committed the heinous act that would lead to her conviction and subsequent placement on demise row. Tragic abduction and slaying. On May 16, 2001, Joanna Rodriguez, a new mother of a 4-day-old infant named Ray, was at home, seeking some much-needed rest after giving birth. Tragically, this moment of vulnerability was shattered when 3 men forcibly entered her home. Their intent was sinister. Linda Anita Cardi had hired these men, Gerald Anderson, Carlos, and Chris Robinson, to carry out a heinous plan to abduct and ultimately slay Joanna and steal her newborn son. The horror that unfolded in Joanna's home is almost unimaginable. The men, wielding violence, forcibly took Joanna and her infant son. Joanna, undoubtedly terrified for the safety of her child and herself, was subjected to a nightmarish ordeal. They confined her in the trunk of their car, taking measures to stifle her cries for help by taping her mouth shut. They further immobilized her by handcuffing and tying her up. To ensure she could not identify them, they covered her face with plastic bags. Joanna's cause of demise was determined to be suffocation, a tragic end to her young life. The vehicle used in this gruesome act, both for the abduction and the slaying, belonged to none other than Linda Anita Cardi, Joanna's neighbor. The 3 men who carried out the abduction were apprehended, and during the investigation, they revealed that Cardi had recruited them for this heinous crime. It was in Linda Cardi's car that Joanna's lifeless body was discovered, the very same car in which she had been cruelly abducted. Thankfully, Joanna's infant son, Ray, was found safe in another car belonging to Linda Anita Cardi. The motive behind this horrifying act was rooted in Cardi's desperate desire to salvage her failing marriage to Joseph. Convinced that only a baby could save her relationship, she persisted in fabricating a pregnancy, even going so far as to inform Joseph that she was on the brink of giving birth. Tragically, Joanna Rodriguez's baby arrived just in time to be entangled in this web of deceit, leading to a devastating loss of life and an innocent child left without his mother. This tragic event serves as a haunting reminder of the depths to which some individuals are willing to go in the pursuit of their own desires, and the profound and lasting impact such actions can have on the lives of others.
4 days before giving birth to precious baby boy, ended up dead.
But now I'm found.
And, you know, I've watched 6 people die in the execution chamber, whether it be lethal injection twice.
I am. And that's where I feel as though my government abandoned me, because they should have been able to look.
Quite probably not. It's difficult to be certain, but the sort of standard for minimum term.
Once we got into the case, and I saw what had happened to her in the trial.
You mean you didn't talk to them before that time?
No.
Did you talk to anyone from the defense team before that time?
I don't want to die like that.
Investigation. Linda Anita Carty's involvement in the tragic abduction and slaying of Joanna Rodriguez and her infant son Ray was initially suspected due to a series of suspicious actions and statements. Investigators became wary of Carty when they learned that she had been informing people about her impending childbirth, despite displaying no visible signs of pregnancy. This inconsistency raised red flags, prompting law enforcement to delve deeper into her possible connection to the crime. As part of their inquiry, the police conducted interviews with residents of the apartment complex where both Carty and Rodriguez resided. One neighbor reported a peculiar encounter with Carty in a vehicle, where they observed the child's car seat. During this interaction, Carty disclosed that she was pregnant, although the witness noted that Carty did not exhibit the physical characteristics typically associated with pregnancy. This observation further fueled suspicions surrounding Carty's claims. Subsequently, law enforcement authorities reached out to Carty and requested her cooperation in the investigation. During the conversation, Carty acknowledged that a rented car in her daughter's vehicle might have been involved in the crime. This admission ultimately led to her arrest. Following her apprehension, Carty provided information that proved pivotal in the case. She directed the investigators to a specific location where both vehicles were discovered. Shockingly, one vehicle contained the abducted infant, Ray, who was alive and unharmed. Tragically, the other car held the lifeless body of Joanna Rodriguez, who had succumbed to suffocation. The incriminating evidence against Carty continued to mount. Her fingerprints were found in both vehicles, firmly establishing her direct association with the crime. Additionally, investigators uncovered various items of baby paraphernalia, further solidifying Carty's connection to the abduction. These revelations painted a chilling picture of Carty's role in the heinous act. Her deliberate attempts to deceive others about her pregnancy, combined with the discovery of baby-related items and her fingerprints in the vehicles, left little room for doubt regarding her involvement. The tragic outcome of Joanna Rodriguez's suffocation and the abduction of her infant son Ray underscored the depths to which Carty was willing to go in pursuit of her own desires. The case serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can result from the actions of individuals driven by desperation and a misguided sense of self-interest. The meticulous investigative work, coupled with the compelling evidence gathered, ultimately led to the apprehension and conviction of Linda Anita Carty for her role in this harrowing scene. Arrest of Linda Carty. Linda Anita Carty's arrest was the culmination of a complex history involving both criminal activity and cooperation with law enforcement. Even before her involvement in the abduction and slaying of Joanna Rodriguez, Carty's record was tarnished. In 1992, she faced charges for auto theft and impersonating an FBI. Surprisingly, instead of serving time in prison, she was granted a lenient sentence of 10 years probation on the condition that she becomes an informant for drug-related cases. Carty complied and provided crucial information that led to the successful apprehension of individuals involved in significant drug operations. Unfortunately, her status as an informant came to an abrupt end when she herself was caught and charged with drug-related offenses. The events surrounding Joanna Rodriguez's tragic slaying and the abduction of her infant son Ray brought Carty back into the spotlight. The three men directly responsible for carrying out the heinous act later confessed to the authorities that they had been hired by Linda Carty. Thankfully, baby Ray was eventually located unharmed in Carty's possession. Carty's subsequent arrest led to a legal battle where she maintained her innocence. Her defense argued that the three men had orchestrated a setup, exploiting her past as an FBI informant to frame her for the crime. This added a layer of complexity to the case, as it called into question the credibility of the witnesses and the motives behind their involvement. In February 2002, Linda Carty was convicted of multiple charges, including abduction, slaying, and solicitation to slaying. This verdict resulted in her being sentenced to Texas Demise Row, where she remains incarcerated to this day. Throughout the years, Cardi has pursued legal avenues to appeal her conviction, with her most recent attempt being denied by the United States Supreme Court in November 2018. Cardi's case serves as a stark reminder of the intricate dynamics within the criminal justice system. Her dual role as both an informant and a perpetrator highlights the complexities that can arise when individuals become entangled in a web of criminal activity in cooperation with law enforcement. The tragic outcome of Joanna Rodriguez's slaying and the abduction of her son is a testament to the profound impact that criminal actions can have on the lives of innocent individuals. The legal proceedings that followed underscore the challenges and complexities inherent in seeking justice for such heinous crimes.
And her newborn baby boy was discovered in your daughter's car.
Place is, to my mind, utter insanity. You come out of there in midnight, it's always in the middle of the night because people...
Or someone wanted to get rid of me. I now know that.
It, just thinking about it makes me sick. It's hard enough.
No, for sure, because I wasn't there. But I can truthfully say, and I can truthfully look you in the eye and tell you that I had nothing to do.
Trial. During the trial, a series of compelling evidence was presented to establish Linda Anita Cardi's involvement in the abduction and slaying of Joanna Rodriguez, as well as the kidnapping of her infant son Ray. Firstly, it was revealed that in early May 2001, Cardi and her husband underwent a separation. In a surprising turn of events, Cardi informed her estranged husband that she was carrying his child, implying that she was pregnant with their baby. This revelation laid the groundwork for the subsequent events that unfolded. On May 15, 2001, just a day before the tragic events, Cardi confided in her neighbor, Florence Mayers, revealing that she was pregnant and anticipating giving birth the following day. Mayers, however, testified that Cardi's physical appearance did not align with what would be expected of a pregnant woman, casting doubt on Cardi's claim. On the same day, Cardi informed her husband that she would be delivering a baby boy imminently. When he later met her at the police station on May 16th, after her arrest, he inquired if the baby had been born. Cardi's response, "Not yet," furthered the skepticism surrounding her pregnancy. In yet another instance, on May 15th, 2001, Cardi confided in Sherry Bancroft, an employee at Public Storage, stating that she had indeed given birth to her child and that he was at home with his father. This conflicting information added to the web of deceit surrounding the pregnancy. Testimony from the victim's husband proved instrumental in painting a vivid picture of the events that transpired. He recalled an alarming moment during the intrusion when one of the assailants answered his cell phone, suggesting that they were inside the home. This individual then urgently announced that she was outside, prompting a swift exit, taking the baby with them. Additionally, Cardi's cell phone records were introduced as crucial evidence. These records revealed a series of 11 calls made between 12:50 a.m. and 2:50 a.m. on May 16, 2001, between Cardi's phone and a specific cell phone number linked to Gerald Anderson, one of the individuals involved in the crime. Notably, 7 of these calls occurred between 1:09 a.m. and 1:14 a.m., aligning with the timeline of the crime. Hernandez, who had met Cardi while both incarcerated, testified that Cardi had requested her assistance in composing a letter. Cardi was careful to avoid using her own handwriting. The letter, purportedly from someone named Oscar, detailed Cardi's claim that she was being set up by individuals named Chris and Zeb. They were alleged to have borrowed Cardi's car and placed the baby inside. The letter suggested a grudge against Cardi. Cardi's mother provided a critical perspective. She attested that her daughter had not mentioned anything about being pregnant during their conversations on May 13th and in the subsequent days. Additionally, Cardi did not exhibit any physical signs of pregnancy during this time, further calling into question the validity of her claims. These pieces of evidence collectively built a compelling case against Linda Anita Cardi, offering a detailed account of her actions, statements, and associations in the lead up to the tragic events of May 16, 2001. They played a pivotal role in the trial's outcome. Conviction and appeals. Linda Anita Carty's conviction and subsequent legal proceedings have been marked by a series of appeals and interventions. Carty's conviction for slaying was handed down on February 19, 2002, followed swiftly by her sentencing to demise by lethal injection on February 21st of the same year. As is customary in Texas, the imposition of a demise sentence automatically triggers a direct appeal process to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Unfortunately for Carty, her initial appeal to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals was met with rejection on April 7, 2004. This prompted her to pursue further legal avenues, leading her to file an appeal with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. This appeal, however, met a similar fate, being rejected on September 19, 2009. With these setbacks, Carty's legal team sought to escalate the case by appealing to the highest court in the United States. On February 26, 2010, Carty took her case to the U.S. Supreme Court, a move that garnered significant attention, particularly from the British government. They filed an amicus curiae brief in support of Carty's petition, underlying the international interest and concern surrounding her conviction. However, despite the advocacy efforts, on May 3, 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court opted not to review the case, effectively denying certiorari. In Texas, the Board of Pardons and Paroles has the authority to recommend clemency to the governor. However, such recommendations are infrequent, and demise penalty cases often face an uphill battle in this regard. In 2018, Carty made another attempt to seek relief through the legal systems. This time, she argued that the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals had neglected to consider the cumulative impact of constitutional errors in her case. These errors included claims of ineffective assistance of counsel and allegations that the state intentionally withheld crucial pieces of exculpatory evidence. Despite these compelling arguments, the Supreme Court once again declined to grant certiorari, denying Carty's appeal. Throughout this tumultuous legal journey, the British government maintained a vested interest in Carty's case. They filed an amicus brief in support of her petition, emphasizing their concern over potential miscarriages of justice and their commitment to upholding fair and humane treatment for all individuals, including British citizens facing the demise penalty abroad. Linda Anita Carty's legal battle exemplifies the complex and arduous nature of demise penalty cases in the United States. Her multiple appeals and the involvement of international entities reflect a broader global conversation surrounding capital punishment. Despite the various attempts to challenge her conviction, Carty remains on Texas demise row, underscoring the challenges faced by individuals seeking reprieve from the ultimate punishment.
In one sense, it's very difficult to understand. The American system.
I come from a perspective of I believed in the death penalty. So this was not a case where I took this case.
People like Javel, who regardless of what the prosecution says, is utterly innocent of anything, who...
With this case, so yeah.
I'm not scared of...
No reason to believe she poses a risk. She would then have been released after 15 years.
However, she remains on death row.
About this case, why you think people should care, and you said it before, but just it'd be really handy to have it on camera.
That's the only reason I'm fighting, because if I had done this, I would have taken my punishment. But...
And you support her?
I do. I believe there's reasons to believe her conviction's unsafe.
It's something that you can actually go visit her and see her. But just to think of the fact that she's no longer going to be on this earth.
Have more interaction here with me. You need to do more. I still matter. It doesn't matter.
Horrific event suddenly made the world a better place. And of course the answer to that's obvious.
Defense claims. Linda Anita Carty, along with her legal team and supporters, adamantly maintains that her conviction and subsequent demise sentence are grave miscarriages of justice. Central to their defense are several key claims. First and foremost, it is contended that Carty's defense attorney failed to adequately present mitigating evidence during the trial. Reprieve, an organization dedicated to fighting against the demise penalty, asserts the critical aspects of Carty's case that could potentially have swayed the jury were not effectively brought forth. This includes evidence that might have mitigated the severity of her sentence. One of the cornerstone arguments in Cardi's defense is the absence of concrete scientific proof placing her at the crime scene. While it is true that her fingerprints were discovered in the vehicle containing the victim's body, this alone does not incontrovertibly establish her direct involvement in the crime. The defense argues that the presence of fingerprints does not necessarily indicate guilt and could be attributed to other circumstances. Cardi maintains that she was framed by 3 men who sought retribution for her prior work as an informant with the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. According to her account, these individuals orchestrated a plot against her, believing that her cooperation with the DEA had put them at risk. In her words, "It was too difficult just to slay me, so they hatched this plot." This narrative suggests that the men manipulated the situation to shift blame onto Cardi. The divergent fates of Cardi and her co-defendants further underscore the defense argument. The 3 men implicated in the kidnapping and slaying of Joanna Rodriguez received prison sentences, not demise penalties. This discrepancy raises questions about the fairness and consistency of the legal proceedings, especially considering that the co-defendants testified against Cardi. A critical aspect of the defense case is a critic of Cardi's trial attorney, Jerry Garino. It is asserted that Garino's handling of the defense was marred by incompetence. Notably, Garino had never secured a victory in a demise penalty case throughout his entire career, a fact that casts doubt on his suitability for such a complex and high-stakes trial. Specifically, it is alleged that Garino failed to call witnesses who could have presented compelling arguments against Cardi's ending. Additionally, there are allegations that Garino only met with Cardi for a single 15-minute interview. This raises significant concerns about the thoroughness and depth of the legal preparation provided to Cardi during her trial. Garino's co-counsel disputes this claim, underscoring the contentious nature of the defense's assessment of their own performance. Furthermore, Cardi asserts that she was subjected to an interview without the presence of her legal counsel on at least one occasion. This raises questions about the protection of her rights and the potential impact on any statements made during that interview on the course of the trial. In rapid, Linda Anita Cardi's defense is founded on a series of compelling claims. These include assertions of inadequate legal representation, concerns about the credibility of the evidence against her, and allegations of misconduct during the investigation process. These factors contribute to a complex and contentious legal narrative, highlighting the challenges and controversies surrounding her case. U.S. breach of international law. The United States breach of international law in Linda Anita Cardi's case is a significant and contentious aspect of her legal ordeal. According to the Bilateral Convention on Consular Officers, 1951, between the United States and the United Kingdom, the United Kingdom's consular officials were entitled to immediate notification upon Cardi's detention. Unfortunately, the Texan authorities neglected this obligation and failed to inform the British consulate until after Cardi's conviction and subsequent sentencing. Paul Lynch, who served as the United Kingdom's Consul General in Houston at the time, emphasized the gravity of this breach in an interview for a documentary broadcast by the UK's Channel 4 on November 28, 2011. Lynch argued that this oversight had a substantial impact on the case's outcome. He contended that had the UK been promptly notified and given the opportunity to provide support to Cardi, a different scenario would likely have unfolded during the trial. In Lynch's view, this could have ultimately spared Cardi from facing the demise penalty. The United Kingdom has expressed its position on this matter through an amicus curiae brief filed in the US Supreme Court. In this document, the UK contends that it considers the United States to have violated its obligations under international law. This assertion underscores the UK's commitment to upholding legal standards and ensuring the fair treatment of its citizens abroad. However, despite this stance, the UK faces a significant challenge. There is no established legal forum through which it can seek redress for this breach. This breach of international law highlights the complex intersection of legal systems, diplomatic relations, and individual rights. It underscores the importance of consular assistance in ensuring a fair and just legal process, particularly for foreign nationals facing serious charges in a foreign jurisdiction. In Linda Anita Carty's case, the failure to promptly inform the British consulate potentially had far-reaching implications for the course of her trial and subsequent sentencing. The controversy surrounding this breach continues to be a focal point in discussions surrounding her case, illustrating the broader implications of legal proceedings in a global context. Linda Carty's daughter. Linda Carty's daughter, Javal Joubert, holds a crucial role in the narrative surrounding her mother's legal battles and imprisonment. Her presence brings a deeply personal and emotional perspective to the ongoing story. Joubert's experiences and feelings are candidly shared, shedding light on the profound emotional toll that comes with having a parent on demise row. The weight of her mother's situation, coupled with the looming possibility of her ending, creates a complex emotional landscape that Joubert grapples with daily. One striking aspect of Joubert's narrative is her decision not to attend her mother's ending, as depicted in the documentary British Grandma on Demise Row with Susanna Reid. This decision is a powerful illustration of the immense emotional strain that Joubert and her family have endured throughout this ordeal. It speaks to the deeply personal nature of their struggle and emphasizes the individualized ways in which families cope with such devastating circumstances. Joubert's presence in the documentary humanizes the broader legal and moral debate surrounding Linda Carty's case. By sharing her experiences and emotions, she offers a window into the unique challenges faced by family members of those on demise row. Her perspective adds an intimate layer to the exploration of Carty's story, allowing viewers to connect on a deeply emphatic level. Overall, Javal Joubert's role in this narrative is of profound significance. Her candid reflections provide a glimpse into the emotional complexity that families endure when a loved one is facing the demise penalty. Her experiences humanize the larger legal and moral discussion surrounding capital punishment, underscoring the deeply personal impact it has on those directly affected. Joubert's presence serves as a poignant reminder of the very real and deeply felt consequences of the justice system's most severe punishment.
Linda Carty, some people sing for making a living, but you sing for life.
Didn't talk to the witnesses, and the jury never got to hear the right story.
And that's who I try to always keep in mind.
I want to cry because it hurts inside, and those are the tears that I have in there. You know, it's not because...
Who were these two witnesses?
One of the key witnesses was actually a state.
I want to believe that anyone could come up with a plan this ugly.
Saying is that I did not commit this crime, and for me, the worst.
And so when she was first arrested, she said, "Please call Charlie Mathis, the agent."
Devastation doesn't even begin to describe what you feel.
Controversy surrounding Linda Carty. Linda Anita Carty's case has garnered substantial media attention, making it a focal point of public discussions and sparking debates about the justice system's treatment of her. The attention she has received stems from her persistent claims of being wrongfully sentenced, adding a layer of controversy to her legal proceedings. Carty's assertion of innocence have been the driving force behind numerous appeals and legal battles. Her defense and a supportive network argued that she was unfairly convicted, pointing to a range of alleged shortcomings in her trial. These purported deficiencies encompass issues such as inadequate legal representation and allegations of evidence suppression, particularly concerning exculpatory evidence that may have favored her. This sustained effort to challenge her conviction has resulted in the case being featured in various documentaries and television programs. These media representations have played a crucial role in bringing Carty's story to a wider audience, generating public interest and catalyzing discussions about the fundamental fairness of her trial and, by extension, the broader application of capital punishment. As Carty continues to navigate life under the shadow of her confinement on Demise Row, her case has evolved into a more comprehensive discourse. It has become a focal point for deliberations about the intricacies and potential flaws within the criminal justice system. This includes scrutiny of the reliability and integrity of the evidence presented in court, as well as the broader ethical considerations surrounding the use of the demise penalty. In essence, Linda Anita Carty's case transcends the individual circumstances of her incarceration. It has become a symbol of the broader complexities and controversies surrounding capital punishment and the legal mechanisms that underpin it. The ongoing attention and debate around her case reflect a collective societal interest in ensuring fairness and justice within the criminal justice system. Linda Anita Carty, a British national, is currently held at the Mountain View Unit of Texas Department of Criminal Justice. This facility is designated for female demise row inmates in the state of Texas. Remarkably, Carty has been awaiting ending for an extended period of 20 years. If this sentence is carried out, she would become the first female British national to be executed since Ruth Ellis in 1955. Furthermore, Carty would be the first British black woman to face ending in over a century. Despite the weight of the evidence presented against her, Linda Carty has maintained her plea of innocence throughout the entirety of her legal battle. Her unwavering assertion of not guilty has been a cornerstone of her defense strategy. A one-off documentary set to air features Susanna Reid as she embarks on a journey to Texas to personally meet with Linda Carty. The documentary offers viewers exclusive access to police custody footage involving Linda, as well as interviews with key witnesses. Through these elements, Reid delves into the intricate and often convoluted details of this distressing slaying case. In this documentary, Susanna Reid also engages in a conversation with Jovel Joubert, Linda Carty's daughter. Joubert opens up about the emotional struggles she faces while awaiting her mother's ending on demise row. Her candid reflections provide a poignant glimpse into the profound impact that her mother's situation has had on their lives. Joubert's revelation that she would choose not to attend the ending serves as a powerful testament to the emotional turmoil this situation has inflicted upon their family. Lynn Hardaway, a former Harris County Assistant District Attorney, recalls the trial and conviction of Linda Carty. She asserts her belief in Carty's guilt, stating unequivocally, "I don't have any doubt she is guilty of this crime. All the evidence was consistent and had her as the ringleader and orchestrator of the whole offense." This perspective offers insight into the prosecution's unwavering stance on Carty's culpability. The documentary promises to shed light on the multifaceted nature of Linda Carty's case, offering viewers a comprehensive understanding of the legal proceedings, the evidence presented, and the deeply personal and emotional toll it has taken on both Carty and her family. Through interviews, footage, and expert perspectives, the program aims to provide a balanced and thorough examination of this high-profile case. Susanna Reid's investigative approach adds an additional layer of depth to the exploration, ensuring that the audience gains valuable insights into the complexities and controversies surrounding Linda Carty's conviction and impending ending. Impact on society. Linda Carty's case has garnered widespread attention, both in the United States and internationally. It has fueled discussions about the fairness of her trial, the use of the demise penalty, and the broader issues within the criminal justice system. This heightened awareness has contributed to a broader societal dialogue on these topics. Carty's case has become a focal point in the ongoing debate over the demise penalty. Her prolonged stay on the demise row and the controversy surrounding her conviction have spurred discussions about the ethics and efficacy of capital punishment, potentially influencing public opinion and policy discussions on the matter. The challenges and controversies surrounding Linda Carty's case have galvanized advocacy efforts for reform within the criminal justice system. It has prompted discussions on issues such as adequate legal representation, consular rights, and the reliability of evidence, potentially leading to calls for systemic improvements. Lessons learned. Linda Carty's case underscores the critical role of competent legal representation, particularly in demise penalty cases. The allegation of inadequate defense and failure to present crucial evidence serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences when defendants do not receive a fair trial. Carty's situation highlights the significance of consular rights and the need for timely notification to foreign nationals when they are detained. This breach of international law in her case emphasizes the importance of upholding such rights, which can have far-reaching implications on the legal proceedings and outcomes. The controversy surrounding Carty's case prompts a re-examination of the reliability and integrity of evidence presented in court. The presence of contradictory claims and allegations of suppressed exculpatory evidence serves as a cautionary tale about the potential pitfalls within the justice system. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.